Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. Jerri, you wrote a book and we had an awesome episode on the badass firefly effect, which was fantastic. Got to hear all about it. And now my book is out, and I know you've been tired of hearing about it because I keep saying I'm writing a book, and it's been like since the beginning of our podcast. So I guess it's like 6 years now. And now mine's finally out. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm so excited.
Oh, I am very excited. And I was really excited when we had the book signing in Orlando. And I was able to watch you sign your book for all the people that were lined up to get it. And people were excited about it. So do you have your book with you?
Thank you for that. Oh, sorry. I want to thank you for that because I'm terrible with the picture thing and you are excellent with it.
We captured the moment. Yes. So hold up your book. Let us see what it looks like.
Yeah, I forgot to bring it down. I had to go back up and get it. So this is it. So this is what I've been talking about.
Yes. Yes, it's so exciting. And I understand that your daughter helped with some of the graphic design. Yes.
She did all of the graphics design. So that was really, really special to have her do that. So all of these graphics in here, based on the content, she did it. She did it. So It was really exciting. Really nice to partner with you.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was really nice to partner with this.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so good that she was able to do that for you. Now, you mentioned earlier that you've been talking about your book for about 6 years.
Yeah.
And on the podcast, you talk a lot about cooperative learning. And I remember the 80s and 90s, cooperative learning came out and it was a huge transformation in education. But you're giving it a fresh face. But why have you felt like it's important to relook at this?
Yeah. So, so that's when I started teaching in the 90s and I learned about it in college. And I started using it right away when I started teaching. And it was a lot of work. It was really a lot of work. But I saw how impactful it was. There are two really big things that stood out. One was, and in my book, I start out each chapter with a quote that relates to the chapter and then a vignette from something in the classroom, whether it be from my own classroom or from classrooms in the places that I coached and mentored over the past 25, 30 years or whatever it was. Whatever, I don't know, I remember how old I am, but somewhere around there. And so there was this one particular scenario that stood out. And it's my first vignette, actually. Part of what happens in cooperative learning is there's a difference between cooperative learning and group work. So group work is when you have the work hogs, the slackers, and then the kids are fighting and the parents are complaining. And then the teacher just says, that's it, back in rows. And that's group work. Group work just does not work. But when you implement the 5 pillars of cooperative learning, there are 5 components of it, then what happens is pure magic. And one of the things that you have to do in cooperative learning is make sure that students sit together for an extended period of time. And that's one of the tweaks between group work and cooperative learning. Because with group work, we often say, all right, everyone get in a group. We're going to get this done by the end of the week, this project. And then it's pure chaos. But there's lots and lots of structure with cooperative learning. And that structure really lends to this beautiful outcome. And a perfect example was, when you put the students together, it's heterogeneously grouped, a high, 2 middle, and a low. And you create as the teacher. And so when I did that, I had, and I don't know if you've ever been or met a 7th grade girl, but they're not always the kindest of creatures. And so I had 3 girls and 1 boy, and those 3 girls were friends and they were kind of part of the cool group, and they didn't want this one kid. So I said, well,
Right.
we're going to do it. We're going to work through it. We're going to work through it. And so a couple weeks in, as you know, after we've been implementing this, I had lunch duty, and the one student who, he was that kid who everyone made fun of, your heart broke for him. He's in the cafeteria, walking back with his tray, drops his whole tray. So I start to run to go over to help him, but I stop because those 3 girls got up, they helped him clean up his tray, and then brought him over to sit with them. And Jerri, I had to leave because I started to cry. I couldn't believe. And I thought, it's working. This is working as intended. Not only the academic outcomes and everything we've learned over, 70 years of research of cooperative learning, I saw it firsthand. What I really cared about was students becoming this mini community, this little family of empathetic learners together. And so that I was all in after that, all in.
Yes. What a bonus, and how it helped him to feel accepted. And once you feel accepted, you don't know how much he grew from just that experience of being accepted. So Jamie, when you started looking at cooperative learning again with, today it's so different in education. What were some of the things that you had to keep in mind as you wrote this book that were different from the 80s and 90s to today?
Yeah. And so, in the 90s, I started integrating technology a lot. That was when we started surfing the net, right? We were surfing the net. We were on the World Wide Web, and, had dial-up in my classroom with AOL. So a lot of that I started doing, when we look at technology, started doing back then and building that into cooperative learning. So you have your typical team roles like reporter, recorder, manager. And so all of those types of roles, and teachers can change them up anyway. But I had to layer roles. I had to have them layered because they were doing different things, whether it be with problem-based learning or integrating technology. There was always different layers. So I made sure that was a component here. In fact, the book is transforming, which I didn't actually say the title, did I? It's Transforming Classrooms, Building a Culture of Collaboration, but it's a handbook for cultivating community in the modern classroom, right? Just, to your point. So it's different now. It's really different. And it's almost as if it's more important now than it ever was because of
why is that?
Technology is different now. We have students, we have it in our hands. Students are on social media. We tend to, and between social media and COVID, we've seen a difference in students. We've seen a difference in the way that they communicate. We've seen a difference in the way that they will communicate not only with each other, but also the world around them, how they interact with the world. So we're seeing less and less. And what's so interesting is when I was teaching in the 1900s, there was this program in New Jersey called the New Jersey NJ BISEC. It was New Jersey Business and Industry something. And what they did, my husband and I were both science teachers. We went and did this where you stayed at a college. It was Drew University. You live in the dorm, and every day a bus would pick the group of us up and take us out to different corporations, Unilever, Shearing Plow. It was fantastic. And it validated everything I was doing. And what's so interesting is what the corporations were saying they were looking for in the workforce back then are the same things we're seeing now. They need to have people who are good communicators, who are good at collaborating, who are creative, who can problem solve and think critically. So those are what we call the 4 C's. We call them 21st century skills back then. We're 26 years into that century. So I think we call them future ready skills. That's what I refer to them in the book. But it's the same thing. So even though back then those were the things that the workforce needed, it's still what is so needed now. And even more so, I think, because of how we interact with each other, how we learn things. I go to YouTube to learn something now, right? So things are different. Our world is different. So we need to have that incorporated. And in the book, it's not just about cooperative learning and the first 10 days and how to set it up, but it's also about how we learn and the best ways to learn. And so it's, always about structural best practices. And I've always said instructional best practices play the lead. Technology is the supporting role. And that I have built in to not only the 5 pillars of cooperative learning, but also a framework that I built called Quest that builds in design thinking, problem-based learning, integrating technology, whether it's AI. So I have this framework that takes all of that into consideration with a foundation of collaboration and cooperative learning. So that's how I made sure that I was incorporating all of what we see as instructional best practices now, chunking content, all of that. Yeah.
Right. So if a teacher wanted to do a project-based learning lesson, she or he could use the framework that you have developed with cooperative learning, because there's so many of those pieces that would fit into that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Definitely with AI, because there's, and I really wanted to make sure that I was addressing that, because we are so concerned with AI in terms of it taking our thinking away. So that's what that framework does, is it makes sure that the students are in quest, Q stands for question. It's the students individually, always individually first, and then as a team are developing those questions. Where we're coming up with what's relevant and what's important. And that is driving what that PBL is all about. And so that's the first step. And they don't touch any technology with that. They are the ones driving those questions. They are driving what's important and relevant. And then they can dig into whatever technology tools that they have. But then the other component is we're not just taking it and then using it. I have this framework called built within there, an activity called ABCD check. And it's making sure that it's accurate, making sure that it's not biased, making sure that it's, connected and meaningful, and then also making sure that it's directly relevant. So those are the 4 things that they do within that framework of Quest.
Right.
And then they get to build, then they get to synthesize and build and create, and then they metacognitively think through it all. So that's really what Quest is there.
Yes. And I think that is the important part, that you have a handbook that gives teachers a framework, or more than one framework, because sometimes teachers come in and just put them in a group and they don't have a framework or something to follow, and then it all falls apart. So
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yes. And so this is so impactful. And it seems to me that you could get this book and on Friday, and by Monday, you could get started. Was that your hope?
That was my plan. Yes. I wanted to make this meaningful. I wanted to make it usable. So I call it a handbook, right? I want it to be a guide that people can use, because I don't want it to just be theory. So I talk about the theory in there. That's how we kind of set it up. You understand the background, but then it really just gets into practical use cases. So yeah.
And really, I believe that's what teachers want, because they've done the theory, yes, in their preparation to be a teacher, and now they need the nuts and bolts, the skills. How do I make this work? How do I make this go well for me? So did you come across anything that challenged your thinking as you were writing the book, that made you stop and wonder about cooperative learning in this day and age?
Yeah. Um, you know, part of the problem, I think, and part of the reason it took me so long, um, is that I'm very iterative. So I start something and then I find that there are just ways to make it better. And then I
Yeah.
think also, Stephanie, I have to say that conversations that happen on our podcast or on LinkedIn, they really help to drive this to make it even better than what I had originally intended. I kept going deeper, yet still trying to stay practical and true to what I
Right.
wanted to do. So I think that was a challenge in making sure that I have this is, not new. Cooperative learning isn't new, but I needed to make sure that it was relevant, just as we talked about before, in what teachers are
Today's
struggling with right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
as
really wanted to keep the
modern
pulse
class.
on that. Exactly, the modern classroom. I wanted to keep the pulse on that, yet at the same time, make sure that it's practical. So there are so many. So that was the challenge. I had so many other examples and lessons. So what I had to end up doing was once I ended up working with an editor, Jackie Gardy, she's coming on the podcast. And so, she helped me kind of fine tune some of the content and make sure that it was relevant and streamlined. So what I ended up doing was when we were debating like what should stay in, I didn't want to keep things out. So I have a QR code in the book and it goes to a toolkit. So there's like a password and they can get in with that QR and the password. And there are a ton of extra things that I couldn't keep in the book,
Yes.
lessons and examples. And then there are also some of the things that could be printables I made in a version that they could print out and use as posters in the classroom. So I have a variety of different resources in that toolkit. Yeah. So that was a struggle. Keeping it lean was
Yeah.
tricky.
But I love the QR code because teachers want those extra resources. If you were
They got
walking into a classroom today and the teacher
Yeah.
was using your ideas, what would you hope to see? What would you see there?
Oh my gosh. I love that question. So obviously the first thing when you go into a classroom that is built on the foundation of cooperative learning, you're going to see students in teams. You're going to see a classroom that is almost running itself. The teacher is the facilitator, the guide on the side, right? And not that sage on the stage.
Right.
So once they start, and that's, that's why it's so important for students to stay in these teams for at least a marking period so that they build this mini community, but also it's so that they are learning the routines so that it's not like it's something new every day. It
Yeah.
just goes and flows. So you see that seamless integration where it's just coasting so well. You're going to see students with mental conflict. You're going to see opportunities for them to explore things that don't make sense to them. And they're
Mhm.
doing it in a way that they're doing it first individually so that they can process in their own time and in their own way. And so that everyone is on the same level. So that way they can all be able to discuss, no matter their level, they all are able to discuss, articulate, and contribute so that there isn't any unbalanced act on any one student. They're all being able to contribute. So that's the goal. It takes time. It's not easy, but it's all about consistency. And so when you have that consistency built in, it makes all the difference in the world.
Right. And establishing those routines so that they all know exactly what the role is, how they can move forward, what they're doing that day. I think that is so important. I remember a phenomenal teacher I had in fourth grade, and she called in sick one day, and she didn't have time to get any lesson plans in. I couldn't find a sub. So as the principal, I went in to the class and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be bedlam. The kids ran the class because she had these
Exactly.
structures in place. I could not have
Exactly.
praised her more or been more thrilled with those
Yeah.
children and how they knew
Yeah.
exactly what comes next. I was just in there observing. I mean, they
Yeah.
really did. It was like a well-oiled machine. It went
Yeah.
so I know
Yeah.
when those are in place, and that was 4th grade. People think
Mm-hmm.
high school, no. And that brings me to my next question. Jamie, what ages do you suggest cooperative learning?
So I do this. This is for K through 12. It could also be for higher ed. Obviously, we want
Right.
students to be doing this in college too. But there are modifications built throughout the book
Yeah,
for primary, elementary, upper elementary, middle school, high school. Yeah. So there are different modifications for each because it's going to look a little
sure.
different. We're not going to be as involved in the lower grades. But it's funny because I was that you mentioned that, and part of I always kept this in my mind. Um, I was coaching middle school math teachers on using cooperative learning, station-based cooperative learning. So they're using
Yes.
cooperative learning within learning.
Yes.
And one of the teachers, they all were so intrigued, 7th grade, 8th grade math teachers, and they wanted to do it. And one of them said, it's so funny because I was just in a 4th grade classroom and I watched these 4th graders do this so beautifully. And my kids just can't do it. And so, but then there's 7th grade. They're more responsible. They should be able to do it. But it's all about that consistency. It's all about the different types of activities that you're having in those stations. And because they do, kids change. Kids change when they get into middle school. And I remember one year I had 6th grade students and the same kids in 7th grade. They were completely different kids, completely. So they didn't want to interact with each other. They were, kids in 6th grade have ants in their pants and they're really excited and they want to please
Yeah,
you. And then it's like crickets when they get to 7th grade, crickets. So
right.
now you're doing more to make sure that that structure's in place and doing more to make sure that you're building in that daily routine. And when I say daily routine, it doesn't have to be these big, long projects that you're doing every day. The
Right.
kids can be doing independent work throughout the day, but at least if they're in their, if it's a do now or whatever you call it, they're in their quick like review from the day before or an activity to prepare them for that day. At least if there's some level of cooperative learning built into those, could be just a minute or two, then that structure is still kind of coasting through and you're not skipping periods of time where they're not involved in doing something collaboratively and where they don't have those structures in place and all of those pillars, as I mentioned, that has to be on some level daily.
Right. So, yeah, that leads me to my next question because would you suggest that teachers implement something each day? Even because I think sometimes teachers think it has to be this big unit that we're working on.
Right.
So, how to
Yeah.
debunk that?
So what I did was I have 40 different strategies in the book. There are some that most of them are just classic strategies that we've heard of,
Right.
from different elements like jigsaw, think,
Yeah.
pair, share, round. Like we've heard of these. Some of them are Kagan structures. Some of them we've heard for years and years. But they're all based on these 5 pillars. And so when what I did beyond that is I divided them up by cognitive level, if they're divergent or versus convergent. And I did it based on like the time frame that it would take. So if you want to do something quick, then there's a matrix that shows just those activities that fit that quick time frame. If there's something that you want to do within a problem-based learning event, activity that's going to take a lot of time, then I have strategies that fit with those. So they're all divided up into time frame and cognitive load to help as well. Because that took me some time to really figure out, because I think I just did it based on time frame, because I knew, to answer your question, that's exactly how I wanted to make sure that teachers knew, like, this is where you go for these quick activities. These are short-term activities. These are long-term activities. But then I also wanted to make sure that they addressed the cognitive load built in. So I divided up that way.
Right. Yes. So, so realistically, you can do some cooperative learning every day in your classroom, and it could be from 1 minute to some big project that they're working on. Yes. So I remember when we were implementing cooperative learning in the 80s, and we had parents coming in, and they were worried that kids would be cheating, or that their student would do all the work and somebody else would just sit there and get credit. What other kinds of myths do you think we need to debunk about cooperative learning? Are there other myths out there that you wish could go away?
Yeah. So teaching is the highest form of learning, to address that one issue, because that you hear that a lot. When I say the work hogs and the slackers, you always have, like, oh, my kid's going to have to do all the work, or, this kid takes over too much. But that is what happens with group work classically every time.
Yeah.
But with cooperative learning, it doesn't. And that's because of those 5 pillars. So what are the pillars? I've arranged them in an acronym called TEAMS. And so the T stands for together, and that it just refers to the pillar of positive interdependence. So that makes sure that students it's this sense of, like, we are relying on each other. We're in this together, arm in arm. This is something we are collaboratively working on together. So that's what the T stands for. The E stands for each accountable. And this is where I think it really addresses what you're talking about, is individual accountability.
Yes.
So when you have individual accountability, you do not get away with the work hogs and the slackers. It's every student has their own responsibility, their own piece to the puzzle that they are responsible for. And whatever the little activity or big project that they're doing, it's not going to succeed unless they each are doing it. And so you have this, and that's why I just had a conversation with someone. It's why I feel like, and I wrote about this in the book, implementing cooperative learning and then also problem-based learning, it gets kids out of bed. It eliminates that challenge of absenteeism. It eliminates that challenge of low graduation rates, because kids care. It's something that they know. I am being relied on. My thoughts matter. So and again, that's where that consistency really comes into play as well. You need to have that built in. So when kids know that they're doing something they care about, they're doing something that matters, they know that their voice matters, it gets them out of bed. It gets them excited. I have to be there. It's my turn to do blank. I have to provide this. I'm right in the middle of blank. It's something they care about. It's not heroes where they're just, tuning everything out. So, it allows, it is. The A in TEAMS stands for actively supporting, and that's called promotive interaction. And what that does is, it's part of the rules or guidelines of cooperative learning. Every student is responsible for the learning of each of the other students. So that means that if you're continually encouraging each other, you're helping them with either, oh, I know that one, I can help you with that. Or, oh, you know what? I saw this in my other class. I saw this great graphic organizer. This might help you. Or someone help me with blank because I don't understand. They get to a point where they lean on each other. And that's that promotive interaction. The M is the typical, right, is the social skills. It's making connections. So it's building those social skills. So it's that, active listening, and it's making sure that you are using productive language. And I have tables and help for sentence stems for those. But that's what we really think about when we think about cooperative learning. We think about those social skills, but it's just one of the 5 elements.
I want to say about that is that there's no better way to build social skills than by practicing and learning in real life. There's no worksheet that can teach you this, or no lecture that can teach you these skills. So I love that, because students are learning in real time, in real situations, how to build social skills. So important.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And so it's naturally embedded. It's not this false kind of, awkward way to do it. That's what's so nice about cooperative learning, because it's naturally built in. And then the last one of teams, plural, is self-reflecting. So it's called group processing. I changed it to team process. There's a very specific reason for that, because when we say groups, we think of it as this unstructured group work that fails when we say groups. But when we use the terminology of teams, it's a different connotation. So I call it team processing. What team processing is that self-reflecting, because if we don't take the time to think about what went well and what didn't go well, then we're not going to acknowledge the things that went well and continue to do them. And we're not going to break the bad habits of things that don't go well. So it's that metacognition that's built in as one of the 5 pillars of cooperative learning.
Right.
So
important. A skill they need their entire life, that helps them to become a better person, a better worker. Yes. Oh, these are so exciting, Jamie. I am so excited for you to have finished your book and getting it out there. So where do we go to buy your book?
So that's easy. I have a webpage called transformingclassrooms.com. So that's the first place. And it gives links to going to Amazon, going to Barnes and Noble, where they're both for sale there. It also gives some ways to order if you want to buy in bulk, like if you want to have for a class team of teachers within a grade level, or if you want it for school or district. So it gives special opportunities for that. And then it gives, actually, you did a testimonial. It has some testimonials on the webpage. And then yours is right here on the inside cover, along with let's see other podcast guests. So here's Carl Hooker. Here's you. Yeah. This was the principal I had when I was teaching here in New Jersey. She was phenomenal. Just talked about promotive interaction. She was all about just encouragement and letting me and other teachers take risks. On the back is Jen Womble. So we've had Jennifer Womble on. Barbara Bray. We just had Barbara Bray on. And then this is Michael Saponaro. We had Michael Saponaro on twice. So I had all of our LinkedUp friends on here, Jerri.
I love it. I love it so much, because I just think of all that we've done in these 6 years, Jamie. It has been such a fun ride, and we just hit that 200th episode. And I love the voices that we're getting out there. And the thing I love most of all is how you connected with all of those in your book, in some way or another, right? I would think that it's all reflected in your book, because we talk to the best people. We
do. The best people. But I have a question for you.
Yes.
So am I a Baroness Firefly now that I finished my book finally?
You were before, but now you're really badass. Yes. Yes. It's so exciting. So exciting. So I know I wanted to get one at the book signing, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't take it away. You had such a long line, and I thought, I can't take one away from somebody that's here. So I am heading out to order that. And of course, I'll order my daughter one
well.
as well.
Thank you.
Use this as well. So, well, it is such a moment of pride for me to have you on as a guest and to be able to ask you some questions about your book. And I'm also so proud that you are sharing your knowledge that you have acquired over all these years to help teachers to make learning even more impactful than it's ever been. So thank you for all of that. And we will absolutely check out transformingclassrooms.com and get an order of your book. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Jerri.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.